Naughty Dog has done it again. Is a brilliant game. Now, when I start talking about spoilers, I will give you a spoiler alert, so don't worry, I won't surprise you with plot. The first part of this review is just a simple critique of the entire game from a fundamental standpoint. Naughty Dog has done it again. They are one of the few studios out there that I trust completely and have complete confidence in to deliver a breathtaking, surreal, and thought-provoking story-driven experience that's just not the norm these days. In an age where CODs, Fortnites, Battle Royales, and MOBAs are the current trend, single player and story-driven experiences are far and few. What Naughty Dog attempts to do here, and successfully does, is transport us back into the world of clickers, infected, shamblers, and Ellie's story. And it does so in a way where we are constantly and perpetually taken out of our comfort zone. We were left with quite a cliffhanger from part 1, and thrown back into the mix, seemingly with everything in the world all peachy. But of course, that is a false sense of security, as the game quickly takes us on a tumble down the mountainside. As story beat after story beat, we are hit with so much emotion and conflict that we are in a constant state of heightened sensitivity throughout the whole game. Now, none of this needs to be said, but I'll say it anyway. The actors, designers, writers, and artists should all be proud of themselves, and should be extremely proud of this game, as everything looks beautiful, and during a time where most people are tantalized by the prospect of the graphical fidelity of Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. The narrative is breathtaking, the acting is superb, and I'm pretty much able to empathize with every single character that's on screen at any given time. The gameplay remains true to The Last of Us. What does that mean? It means it hasn't changed, and for all the right reasons. There are some mechanical evolutions here and there. What we know and love from the first game is simply refined and stays in place. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Last of Us has always been a story-driven game, and I wouldn't want the story to suffer in favor of redundant and unnecessary gameplay bloat. You can fight, you can stealth, you can move, you can dodge, you can craft, and all of that good stuff. And it all works. Is it the most sophisticated gameplay system out there? No, but it works for what the game is trying to achieve. Spoiler alert number 1 for gameplay evolution. The game tries to some degree to bring you a sense of open world. And I would have enjoyed a bit more of that feeling where we're wandering aimlessly through Seattle and picking apart building after building. But in a sense, it would also detract heavily from the story-driven aspect of the game. This isn't an open world sandbox game, but I'm glad we were given a little bit of roaming freedom around Seattle, even if temporarily. What the game does right, as it goes back to a linear style as the story dictates, is that it does maintain some atmosphere of open world exploration, with buildings and alleys that are freely explorable at your whim. While you may find yourself heading in a single direction from point A to point B, along the way you'll find buildings and alleys off the beaten path that need to be explored and should be explored to provide further context and story elements hidden in notes and pictures to give you this sense of a lived-in world. Spoiler alert number 2 for story. The game's best asset is delivering a wholesome story. And I don't mean wholesome as in like family friendly. Wholesome in that it puts us in the shoes of others and it provides a more wholesome or holistic perspective. Typically we're left with a very bare bones and minimalistic approach to the good and bad, and our moral dilemma isn't often shaken to its very core. But what Naughty Dog does in this game, and successfully does, is that it brings to the forefront the very real concept of empathy. Every single person in this fictional world has loved ones, has family, has friends, and vendettas. And while we may get lost in the world of revenge and killing baddies and infected, we're also given a glimpse into the other side with Abby. These characters very much have every motivation to seek out revenge against those who have wronged them, and vice versa. When the story reaches a certain point, we are also charged with vengeance. And while I will admit that it was difficult for me at first to play as Abby, and difficult for me to empathize with her because my connection to Ellie and Joel were just so deeply ingrained and stronger, it made me understand that it was just another vicious cycle. You seek revenge in a world like this and people will bite back, and eventually the cycle keeps going. It was an invaluable lesson to play as the other side, and even go so far as to make Ellie spoiler alert again, be a boss encounter for Abby. You're conflicted in wanting to defeat her. You also want Ellie to succeed in some small way. I kept telling myself throughout the encounter as I kept getting whopped by Ellie that I don't want to beat Ellie. I want Ellie to win, and Abby dying would be the most comfortable ending. But again, this was a test of our courage. To see things play out and to have control over a situation to see things play out where we're not comfortable. Spoiler alert number 3 for the ending. The ending is a tough pill to swallow. I saw a lot of articles and headlines for reviews of this game where it was saying where the ending went wrong, and I'm just like, it's a completely subjective experience. Nothing is wrong, only something you didn't like. But what I think what Naughty Dog did so well here is that it presents a dilemma by way of putting Abby and Ellie at odds with each other in a moment where they're both at rock bottom and their patience with the world is so unbelievably thin. As much as I wanted Abby dead in the beginning, by the end I had at least enough empathy for her to realize I didn't want it to end in bloodshed or end in a way where Ellie is left with a huge baggage of continuing the cycle of violence. I know a lot of people will hate being brought out of their comfort zone, and I think this game is a love letter to traditional filmmaking and storytelling, where the vision of the story is in service of the narrative more so than it is in service of fans, which I understand will ruffle some feathers, but ultimately, I'm totally for. As a writer and a game designer, we want people to feel uplifted when playing games, but we also want to challenge people to think critically, but also give people more of a sense of a gradient world perspective than a black and white one. And this is where the backlash comes in. I'm aware this game is receiving a lot of hate, and even actors who portrayed characters in the fictional game are receiving non-fictional death threats. This 100% should not be happening in no way, shape, or form. The actors did a brilliant job portraying these fictional characters in a fictional world, and we need to be cognizant of this. This is fiction. None of these actors actually did anything that happened in the game. On top of that, none of the events that actually occurred in the game ever happened in reality. And I can't believe I have to say this, but I guess it needs to be said now. At the end of the day, this game is another Game of the Year candidate alongside Jedi Fallen Order. It took risks that I think paid off, and it took us out of our comfort zone to bring us a thrilling and thought-provoking story that challenges us, challenges our confirmation bias, and embroils us in cognitive dissonance, left and right. And I enjoyed the story thoroughly, as sad and painful as it was to experience. And in essence, I think that's what most people have to come to terms with. These are fictional characters, and I know we have our favorites, and I know we have bonds and connections with these people, but at the end of the day, Ellie isn't gonna ride into the sunlight and be happy. There are very real consequences for whatever happened and whatever decisions they made in that world, and this game hammers it down beautifully. Was I upset that certain people died or the story didn't go in one way or the other? A little bit, but at the end of the day, I understood why it took that turn. I understood why the story went there. And as long as we can understand that, especially in a visceral world as The Last of Us, that not everything is going to end in sunshine and rainbows, and the ending that you might have wanted to see happen would have resulted in Ellie having some serious PTSD, trauma, and huge mental and emotional baggage. I guess a lot of the backlash right now is just, people who just can't cope with being taken out of their comfort zone. They want the game, as gritty and as realistic as it portrays itself, to be a little bit more lighthearted. I'm not sure, I can't speak for everyone, but I do love this game. I enjoyed the story very much, and I really hope we stop threatening and we stop the hate for anyone who worked on the game, because at the end of the day, it's just a game. It's a fictional world, it's fictional characters, none of them ever harmed you, none of them ever did anything to you personally. But that'll do it for my review of The Last of Us Part 2. It's not my typical content, I'm a Star Wars channel, but I had to make this review because the game had so much of an impact on me, and I had a lot to say about it. So thanks for sticking around, and thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, and if you want to subscribe for more Star Wars content, or even some more content of this nature, should the need arise, turn on notifications and subscribe. But as always, may the Force be with you.